Well, I was born February 2nd, 1939. My father's name was Ray, or Raymond as he preferred. My mother's name was Ann. We grew up in a little town on the shores of Lake Ontario called Oswego, New York, whose only claim to fame is the world's largest one fall of snow of 165 inches.
Hi everybody, this is Scooter Pops. Thanks for joining me today and welcome back to the channel. This channel is all about people, places, and things, and normally I don't have a very good opportunity to interview people, but this day I do. Going on our first year anniversary, my first video was with Pops, better known as Ray Smith, that's his real name, but you don't really know a whole lot about Ray. Today you're going to find out more about his music, his singing, songwriting, where he grew up, where he lived, and how we got to be friends. I use that term loosely. Let's just call it acquaintances. So with no further ado, Ray Smith, tell me a little bit about you and where you grew up.
Well, elementary school was Cooper School in Oswego, New York, and high school was Oswego High School.
So how many in your graduating class, do you remember?
It was somewhere around, I think, 60 or 70.
Wow.
We had a large class.
So in school, did you take up any music? Because I know music is an important part of your background.
Well, Mom and Dad always wanted me to play a saxophone because Dad had a saxophone and he used to try to learn to play it and never did too well with it. I started trying to learn it, and first of all, for my age, it was too heavy to be draped around my neck. It actually hurt. So we changed over to a clarinet, which worked out pretty good. And over the years in school, I became first clarinetist in the high school band.
And there was only two in the band, right?
No, I think there was three. I'm not sure. Yeah. I'm trying to refresh my memory, which is long gone. But anyway, that's my claim to fame as far as playing clarinet goes.
Well, actually, your claim to fame is even more than that, because you played with a lot of great artists. You've had your own band, your own business, and you're going to be inducted into a county city. Well, tell me about it.
It's actually the City of Oswego Musicians Hall of Fame.
Very nice.
There's a lot of musicians that I played with over the years that went on to make themselves well known. For instance, Gary Illingsworth. We called him Giggsy. He was the keyboard player in the band that I had together. And he went on to become Aretha Franklin's music director.
Wow.
There was a sax player named Kenny Germain from Oswego. Excellent sax player. And unfortunately, Kenny remained in Oswego and didn't get the claim to fame that he should have had. The leader of the band that I played with, which the band was called Billy and the Barons, Billy died in a car accident. Billy was kind of a crazy boy. He took chances he didn't need to take, and this chance cost him. But we had some good musicians. Guitarist was Dave Rebior, who, by the way, taught me what I learned on guitar.
And you play electric, bass, acoustic. What do you play?
Electric bass.
Very nice.
But Dave started to teach me to play lead guitar when I went into the Air Force. And when I came out of the Air Force, nobody needed a lead guitarist. Every band had one. But I went to a jam session, a place called the Country Inn. They were having a jam session, and when I got there, I was waiting to pay for my ticket to go inside when Dave Rebior came to the door and says, "I'm in a jam." I looked at him and I said, "What do you want me to do?" He says, "My bass player got himself in trouble. He's got all of his equipment here, but we've got no bass player. Can you fill in?" I said, "Dave, I've never played a bass." He said, "You'll get the hang of it." And I did. That's been my only instrument from that day forward.
Where did you move after Oswego?
I went from Oswego to Fairport, New York, outside of Rochester. I played in one band for 9 years. There was a crazy man that led the band. His name was Neil Marvel. And we called the band the Neil Marvel Good Time Band. And believe me when I tell you, good times were had by one and all. We had people that flocked to hear us play. And when I finally left Neil, I formed my own band. My own band was called The First Act, and we played at a place called Val's Lounge out in Brighton, outside of Rochester, one of the suburbs.
Now, your drummer actually has quite a history, right?
Not that drummer.
Oh, okay.
Nope, that drummer we stayed with until the band broke up. We were in Nashville at the time and playing down the streets from Boots Randolph's club. And when I say down the street, it was down the street and downstairs. We were underground where we were playing.
Where you belonged.
Yeah, well, I would say that's probably about it.
Just kidding.
But the band broke up there in Nashville, and I came limping back home. I had an opportunity to buy a restaurant, and I didn't have much money, but the owner was willing to finance. And that was the start of me getting into my own business, my own band as the house band, and we called the place Phillies, F-I-L-L-Y-S, because after all, when a cowboy went to town, he went looking for a little filly.
So this band is the band where the famous drummer for, I think you told me, Ricky Van Shelton went on to play.
That's correct.
Tell me about the band.
The band, as I said, was the house band. Billy Goodness, the drummer, when he left the band, he left with a purpose. I could never blame him for leaving the band because he went on to Nashville, became a session drummer in the studios down there, and ultimately became Ricky Van Shelton's recording drummer and his road drummer.
So how long was this band together?
4 years.
And you toured aside from just in the immediate area, right?
Oh yeah.
Where did you go?
We went out to Mankato, Minnesota. That, I believe at the time, was the Minnesota Vikings training center. And some of the Vikings heard us play. Needless to say, that was nice to entertain the big boys. But like everything else, bands break up. And that band broke up in Minnesota. So I again limped back home, found myself more musicians. I had to advertise this time. And I found an organ man and a drummer. Both excellent musicians, long-haired freaks, which I was becoming anyway. But we had a good run of luck.
So who was the most famous, or what was the most famous and the biggest place you've ever played in your 82 years?
I did a weekend tour with the Grand Ole Opry Roadshow. My band played, first of all, in Rochester, New York, at the War Memorial. Then after that, we went to Buffalo, to Kleinen's Music Hall in Buffalo. And then we went to Scranton, Pennsylvania, and we played down there again with the Grand Ole Opry Roadshow. My music has been my life.
Well, now I'm peeking around the corner, trying to sneak a look at you. 'Cause if we're face to face, I just don't know what I'd do. You're so doggone pretty, and I'm so doggone shy.
So tell me, when did you leave New York to come to, say, Arizona?
Left New York after the winter of 2010 and 2011. I had fallen 4 times on ice and snow, and I figured it was time to get out of that snow country.
So when did you come to Arizona? What year do you remember?
2011.
And that's 10 years ago. So give me a little bit of an idea as to what went on and what took place from the time you got here until, let's say, very day.
Well, when I first got here, I knew nobody, of course. I couldn't play because I didn't know who was playing where and who needed what. I had a furnace problem in my home. And the guy that came over to fix the furnace, about a day later, I got a call from him. He says, "Hey, they're having a jam session over here where I live. Why don't you come over and join in?"
And where was that?
It was right here in the Mesa area.
Okay.
So I went over and I joined in. I made contact with Angie Singer. She said, "Can I get your phone number, and if I need you, could you fill in?" I said, "Sure, no problem." About a day later, I got a call from Rick Diamond, who lives right here in this same park that I'm living in now, who lived in this same. He's not here now. But anyway, he said, "My bass player can't make it. Can you come and fill in?" I said, "Sure." And from that day on, I was Rick's drummer, or Rick's bass player. As I said, the mind don't work like it used to.
So tell me, you've written a lot of songs. I've heard some of these songs.
Yes.
I've used some of these songs in my videos.
I know you have.
And they're absolutely awesome. And I've written songs, but never to the extent of the quality of stuff that you write. I mean, you're an amazing writer. My question is, when did you start writing, and what or who gave you the inspiration?
Well, I started writing before I ever came south to Arizona. The first song I wrote was a song called You Said That You Were Leaving. Later on that same year, about August, I believe it was, I wrote another song, totally different. The inspiration behind the song was, believe it or not, our infamous Highway 60 out here. I called it the Highway 60 Blues. It was on a bluegrass style. And from there, it seemed like my mind just never stopped turning towards writing other songs.
So how many have you written total? Do you recall?
I've written 15. Out of that 15, I've probably got 6 that I would call quality songs. I used them when I had my solo act.
Tell me about the solo act, because I know a little bit about that.
Well, the solo act came when I was out of work. So I put together my solo act and I called it Pops and the Invisible Band.
It's a great name.
And I called it the Invisible Band because, as I used to always say, you can't see them, but you can sure see me.
This might be a little bit of a difficult question to answer, but you do have one song that was inspired by Barbara. Tell us a little bit about Barbara, your life with Barbara, and the song. It's amazing. Take your time.
Barbara and I met through my daughter. She came over, it was near Christmas time. We sat and we talked to each other, got to know each other a little bit. And of course she had her own car, I had none at that time. So she went back home and I got a call from her. She says, I'm working downtown at the Midtown Center. She said, I'm one of Santa's elves. She says, why don't you come on down and after I'm done, we can go out and have some coffee. I did. It was the best idea that I think I've ever been posed with. We became in love with each other. We were together for 35 years.
Wow.
33 of which we were married.
Wow.
When she passed away from Alzheimer's disease, she left me with a broken heart. Prior to her passing away, the little dog that we had, a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel named Willie, Willie had passed away. Barbara at the time was in assisted living, and I couldn't tell her. And when that happened, it was like I lost everything that I ever cared about.
But you have great memories with Barbara and Willie.
Oh yes.
Tell me some of the great memories that you've had with Barbara over the years.
Barbara was a shy woman. She wasn't one that readily picked up a conversation and took charge of it. She loved everybody and everything.
And I can attest to that because when I met Barbara, she was very polite and just very shy. She put out her hand, shook my hand, and just a lovely woman, I got to tell you. So.
She loved everybody, but most of all, she loved God. I've still got her Bible, where she had highlighted certain areas of it, certain things that meant a lot to her with what she read, and she read the Bible every day. She was the one that was responsible for me to also follow in her footsteps, if you would. And yes, we had a song. The song was Bette Midler's The Wind Beneath My Wings. It's hard for me to talk about.
I'm sure.
She was just what the song described. She let me be me. She stood in the wings and pushed me forward. She let me fly. And I could have never done it without her.
And you wrote a song about her too, right?
I've written a lot of songs that have her in my mind.
What was the last one that you wrote about her? I think you shared that with me, but I can't recall the name.
And Now You're Gone.
That's right. How about giving us one more thing that maybe you'd like to add?
Well, we didn't talk about my beginnings in music. I told you that Mom and Dad had their instruments and we'd play around inside the house. When I was 13 years old, I was playing in an adult band. Wasn't much of a band, 3-piece. Had a guitar player, an old-time guitar player that knew every chord that was ever created on a guitar. And the other man was a sax player. And I was playing a rhythm guitar. But from there, I went into the Billy and the Barons band and just kept progressing. Changing styles, moving with the times, if you will, until now.
And after the day, the darkness will hide me.